I sat at the Thanksgiving table, exhausted from working double shifts at a diner just to pay my tuition. My parents, wearing Rolexes and diamonds, bragged about their wealth. Then, my grandfather turned to me and asked a simple question. Mia, are you enjoying your college trust fund? The room went dead silent. I looked at him confused and said, Grandpa, what fund? I'm $80,000 in debt. My parents turned ghost white. They had stolen $500,000 meant for my education to fund their lavish lifestyle. But that wasn't even the darkest secret they were hiding. Grandpa was about to uncover a crime that would send them to prison. The Thanksgiving turkey looked perfect, glistening under the chandelier lights of my parents' dining room. But my stomach was twisting in knots. I had debated even coming today. I was exhausted. I had just finished the double shift at the diner where I worked to pay my rent. And I had 3 essays due for my university classes next week. I sat at the kids' table, even though I was 22 next to my younger brother Tyler. Tyler didn't work. He drove a brand new BMW my parents had bought him for his 19th birthday, and he was currently bragging about his fraternity ski trip to Aspen. My parents, Susan and Mark, sat at the head of the main table, beaming. They looked the part of the successful suburban couple. Dad was wearing a new Rolex. Mom was showing off her latest diamond tennis bracelet. But the guest of honor was my grandfather, Arthur. He was 85, sharp as a tack, and worth more than the rest of the family combined. He lived in Connecticut and rarely visited, but he had made the trip this year. So, Mia, Grandpa Arthur said, his voice booming across the room. He looked at me with a warm smile. How are classes going? Are you enjoying your senior year? I swallowed a bite of dry stuffing. It's good, Grandpa. Hard, but good. And the finances? He asked, taking a sip of wine. I hope you aren't stressing too much about the budget. You should be focusing on your grades, not worrying about money. I laughed, a short, nervous sound. Well, that's the life of a student, right? I picked up extra shifts at the diner, so I think I can cover next semester's tuition without taking out another loan. The room went quiet. My mother dropped her fork. It clattered loudly against her china plate. My father choked on his water, reaching for a napkin to cover his mouth. Grandpa Arthur frowned. He lowered his wine glass slowly. Another loan? He repeated. What are you talking about, Mia? Why would you be taking out loans? To pay for school, I said, confused by his confusion. Financial aid only covers half and the rest is on me. Grandpa stared at me. Then he looked at my father. His eyes, usually kind, turned into slits of cold steel. Mark, Grandpa said, his voice dangerously low. Why is my granddaughter working in a diner to pay for tuition? Why is she taking out loans? Well, Dad, you know how it is, my father stammered, sweat instantly beading on his forehead. Tuition has gone up ... inflation. The market ... double quotes. Stop, Grandpa commanded. I set up an irrevocable educational trust for Mia when she was born. I deposited $500,000 into that account. I appointed you and Susan as trustees with explicit instructions that the money was to be used only for her education and living expenses until she turned 25. My jaw dropped. 500,000? I whispered. I looked at my parents. They were pale, ghostly pale. My mother was gripping the tablecloth so hard her knuckles were white. Where is the money, Mark? Grandpa asked. He wasn't shouting. He was speaking with the terrifying calm of a man who built an empire and knew when he was being played. We invested it, Mom blurted out. To grow it for her future. Invested it in what? Grandpa asked. Because if you invested it, she should have access to the dividends. She shouldn't be serving coffee to pay for textbooks. It's illiquid, Dad said, loosening his tie. Real estate. The market took a hit. We can't pull it out right now without a penalty. I looked at my brother Tyler. I looked at his BMW keys sitting on the table. I looked at my mother's diamond bracelet. I looked at the renovations they had just done to the kitchen marble countertops, Viking range, heated floors. And suddenly, the math that hadn't made sense for 4 years finally clicked. I had been eating instant noodles and working 40 hours a week while taking a full course load. I had begged them for help when my car broke down, and they told me I needed to learn responsibility. They told me they were house poor. You didn't invest it, I said, my voice shaking. I stood up. You spent it. Mia, sit down. My father snapped, his fear turning into aggression. You don't know how finance works. This is adult business. I am an adult. I shouted. I am the adult who is $80,000 in debt because you told me there was no money. But there was. There was $500,000. Show me the statements, Grandpa said. He stood up, leaning on his cane. Right now. Log into the account. Dad, it's Thanksgiving, Mom pleaded, her eyes darting around the room. The internet is spotty. We can look at it next week. Now, Grandpa roared. He slammed his cane onto the floor. Or I call the police and report a theft. Because that is what this is looking like. Grand larceny. My father looked at my mother. There was no way out. The air in the room was thick with panic, and the smell of burning bridges. Dad pulled out his phone. His hands were shaking so bad he could barely type. He logged in. He slid the phone across the table to Grandpa. Grandpa looked at the screen. His face went grey. He scrolled. He scrolled again. Then he looked up at me. His eyes were filled with tears. Mia, he whispered. It's gone. All of it. I asked, feeling like the floor was falling out from under me. There is $42 left, Grandpa said. He looked at my parents. You stole $500,000 from your own daughter. We didn't steal it, Mom cried. We borrowed it. We were going to put it back. We had expenses. The business was struggling. Tyler needed a car for school. We needed to maintain our lifestyle for your reputation, Dad. My reputation? Grandpa scoffed. You bought a boat, Mark. I saw the pictures. You renovated the house. You went to Europe 3 times last year. We deserve a life too, Dad yelled, slamming his hand on the table. Why should she get $500,000 just for being born? We raised her. We fed her. That money was compensation for 18 years of parenting. I felt sick. Physically sick. They had watched me struggle. They had watched me lose weight because I couldn't afford groceries. They had watched me cry over tuition bills. And they had done it while wearing diamonds bought with my future. Get out, Grandpa said. What? Dad blinked. This is my house. Not anymore, Grandpa said coldly. Because the deed to this house is held by the family trust. My trust. I let you live here because you are my son. But I am revoking that privilege immediately. You can't do that, Mom shrieked. Where will we go? I don't know, Grandpa said. Maybe you can live on the boat. Oh, wait. I'm going to seize that too, to pay back my granddaughter. He looked at me. Pack your bags, Mia. You're coming with me. I looked at my parents. They weren't looking at me with apology. They were looking at me with hatred. They blamed me for exposing them. I'll get my things, I said. I turned to leave the room, but my mother grabbed my wrist. Her nails dug into my skin. If you leave with him, she hissed, don't you ever come back. You ungrateful little brat. We gave you life. I pulled my arm away. You gave me life, I said. And then you stole it to pay for your kitchen. I walked out of the house with a backpack and a duffel bag, the same luggage I had used to move into my dorm room 4 years ago. I didn't look back at the custom mahogany door or the perfectly manicured lawn. I just climbed into the back seat of the town car Grandpa had summoned. Grandpa sat next to me, his jaw set in a hard line. He reached over and took my hand. His grip was trembling slightly, not from age, but from rage. "I am so sorry, Mia," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I should have checked. I assumed. I trusted them." "It's not your fault," I whispered, wiping away a tear. "They're good actors. We didn't go to my apartment. Grandpa insisted I stay with him at the Four Seasons downtown. He said my apartment, a basement studio with a leaky ceiling, wasn't safe. Not because of the neighborhood, but because he didn't want my parents knowing where I was. They are desperate," Grandpa warned me, as we rode the elevator up to the penthouse suite. "Desperate people do dangerous things. Mark and Susan just lost their ATM. They are going to lash out." He was right. By the time we settled into the suite, my phone had 18 missed calls. 12 from Mum, 6 from Tyler. None from Dad. He was probably too busy trying to hide assets before Grandpa's lawyers got to them. I turned my phone off. The next morning, the hotel suite was transformed into a war room. Grandpa didn't wait for the holiday weekend to end. He paid triple his lawyer's hourly rate to get them there on a Friday. Mr. Henderson, Grandpa's attorney, sat at the dining table with a laptop and a stack of files. He looked at me with pity, which I hated. But then he looked at the documents with professional disgust, which I appreciated. "It's worse than we thought, Arthur," Mr. Henderson said, sliding a paper across the marble table. "How can it be worse than stealing $500,000? Grandpa asked, pouring himself a coffee. "Because they didn't just drain the trust," Henderson explained. "They committed identity theft." My blood ran cold. "What?" "Mia," Henderson said gently, "did you authorize a credit line with American Express 2 years ago?" "No," I said. "I have a debit card and a student credit card with a $500 limit. That's it." "Well, according to this credit report, Mia Miller has a platinum Amex with a balance of $42,000, and a line of credit at a jewelry store, and a personal loan from a predatory lender for $20,000. I felt the room spin. "They used my name? They used your social security number," Henderson confirmed. "They opened these accounts, maxed them out, and have been making the minimum payments to keep them from going to collections, barely. Your credit score is tanked, Mia. It's in the low 500s. I put my head in my hands. This was why I couldn't get approved for a car loan last year. This was why my application for a better apartment was rejected. I thought it was because I was a student with low income. It was because my parents had anchored me to their debt." "Fix it," Grandpa said. His voice was quiet, terrifyingly calm. "I want it all fixed, and I want them destroyed. We can file a police report for identity theft," Henderson said. "That will clear Mia's name. But it means pressing charges against your son and daughter-in-law. It's a felony." "Do it," Grandpa said without hesitation. "And the house?" "I've already started the eviction proceedings," Henderson said. "Since the house is in the trust's name, and Mark violated the good faith clause by embezzling other trust assets, we can remove them in 30 days. Maybe less if we argue they are damaging the property." "Good," Grandpa said. "And the car?" "Tyler's BMW. Leased under the company name." Henderson checked his notes. "The company you own 51% of." "Repo it," Grandpa said. "Today." "Grandpa," I said, feeling a wave of guilt despite everything. "Tyler didn't steal the money. He's just spoiled." "He's complicit," Grandpa said firmly. "He watched you starve while he drove a $60,000 car. He knew you were struggling. He didn't care. He needs to learn that the gravy train doesn't just stop at derails. Just then, the hotel room phone rang. Only family knew we were here. Grandpa nodded at me to answer it. He pressed the speaker button. "Hello?" I said. "Mia." It was Mom. She sounded hysterical. "Mia, thank God. You have to talk to him. You have to stop him." "Stop who?" "Your grandfather. He froze the accounts. All of them. The joint account, the business account, even your father's emergency fund. We went to buy groceries and the card was declined." "I'm sure you have some food in the pantry, Mom," I said, my voice shaking but my resolve hardening. "Maybe some of that expensive truffle oil you bought." "This isn't a joke," she screamed. "And there's a tow truck in the driveway. They are taking Tyler's car. He has a date tonight, Mia. He is crying in his room. How could you do this to your brother?" "How could I do this?" I laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "Mum, Mr. Henderson just showed me my credit report. You opened credit cards in my name. You stole my identity." Silence. Dead silence on the line. You know about that?" She whispered. "Yes, and so does the FBI. Or they will, in about an hour." "Mia, no." Her voice dropped to a terrified beg. "You can't. That's prison time. We only did it because we knew you'd help us eventually. We were just advancing the help." "Advancing the help?" I repeated. "You ruined my credit. You stole my future. You let me work double shifts while you bought jewelry." "We're your parents," she wailed. "Doesn't that mean anything?" "It means you were supposed to protect me," I said. "Instead, you were the ones I needed protection from. If you press charges," Mom hissed, her tone turning vicious, "I will tell everyone you're a liar. I will tell the family you manipulated a senile old man to steal our inheritance. I will ruin you, Mia." Grandpa leaned over the phone. "Susan," he said, his voice booming, "I am not senile, but I am very, very angry. And I suggest you save your breath for your defense attorney. You're going to need it." He hung up the phone. I looked at him. "Are we really doing this? Sending them to jail?" "They committed crimes, Mia," Grandpa said, putting a hand on my shoulder. "Real crimes. If a stranger did this to you, would you hesitate?" "No," I admitted. "They are strangers," Grandpa said. "They haven't been your parents for a long time. They've been parasites." An hour later, we were at the police station filing the report. The detective looked at the stack of evidence Henderson had compiled, the trust documents, the forged signatures, the credit card statements. "This is substantial," the detective said. "We can pick them up for questioning this afternoon." I thought that was the climax. I thought the arrest would be the end of the drama. But I was wrong. My parents weren't going down without a fight. And they had one last secret weapon they had been saving. A secret about me that they thought would force me to drop the charges. When we got back to the hotel, there was an envelope slid under the door. No postage. Just my name scrawled in my father's handwriting. I opened it. Inside was a single photograph and a photocopy of a document I had never seen before. I read the document. The room tilted. I grabbed the edge of the table to keep from falling. "Grandpa," I choked out. "What is it?" He rushed over. I handed him the paper. It was an adoption certificate, dated 22 years ago. "They aren't my parents," I whispered. "I was adopted, and look at the names." Grandpa looked at the paper. His face went white. "My God," he whispered. This is impossible." My adoptive parents, had left a note on the back of the photo. "Drop the charges, or we tell the world where you really came from. And trust us, You don't want anyone to know who your real father was. The note was a masterpiece of emotional blackmail. My adoptive parents, Mark and Susan, were threatening to expose my biological history as if it were a shameful secret. Who is he? I asked Grandpa, my voice trembling. Who is my real father? Grandpa sat down heavily on the hotel sofa, still clutching the paper. He looked older than I had ever seen him. His name was David Thorne, Grandpa said quietly. He was a business partner of mine, 30 years ago. A brilliant man, but troubled. He got involved in some bad things, Mia. Embezzlement. Fraud. He went to prison. He died there. And my mother. She was a kind woman. She died in childbirth. You had no one. Mark and Susan ... they stepped in. They adopted you. I thought it was out of the goodness of their hearts. I thought they loved you. He looked up at me, his eyes full of sorrow. I didn't know they did it for the money. The money? The trust, Grandpa explained. I set up the educational trust because you were adopted. I wanted to ensure David's daughter had a future, regardless of her father's mistakes. Mark and Susan knew about the trust. They knew if they adopted you, they would become the trustees until you were 25. The pieces fell into place with a sickening thud. They didn't adopt me because they wanted a daughter. They adopted me because I came with a $500,000 dowry. I wasn't a child to them. I was an investment vehicle. And when the money ran out, or rather, when they spent it all, they discarded me. They're blackmailing me with my own adoption, I said, anger replacing the shock. They think I'll be ashamed. They think I'll drop the charges to keep people from knowing my biological father was a criminal. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city skyline. They forgot one thing, I said. I'm not David Thorne. And I'm not Mark Miller. I'm Mia. And I don't scare easily. I turned back to Grandpa. Let's go. Where? To the police station. I want to add extortion to the list of charges. My parents were arrested that evening. They were picked up at a motel near the airport, trying to flee before the indictment came down. The police found them with suitcases full of cash they had withdrawn from the last remaining joint account, before Grandpa froze it. When the news broke, it wasn't my biological father's history that made headlines. It was theirs. Prominent couple arrested for stealing daughter's trust fund and identity theft. The trial was swift. The evidence was overwhelming. The forensic accountant traced every dollar of my college fund, the boat, the renovations, the jewelry, Tyler's car. It was all laid out in black and white. Mark and Susan tried to play the victim card. They cried about parental sacrifice and misunderstandings. But when the prosecutor showed the jury my credit report ruined by their greed, and the photos of me working double shifts while they partied on a yacht, the jury didn't buy it. They were convicted on all counts: grand larceny, identity theft, fraud, and extortion. They were sentenced to 8 years in prison. Tyler didn't go to jail, but he lost everything. The BMW was repossessed. He had to drop out of his fraternity because he couldn't pay the dues. Last I heard, he was working at a car wash, finally learning the value of $1. As for me, I got my name back. Grandpa hired a credit repair agency to fix the damage they did to my financial history. He paid off my student loans, not from the trust, but from his own pocket. It's not charity, he told me. It's restitution. 6 months later, I graduated. Grandpa was there in the front row, cheering louder than anyone. After the ceremony, we went to dinner at the same restaurant where my parents used to flaunt their wealth. But this time it was just us. No pretense, no lies. I have something for you, Grandpa said, sliding a small box across the table. I opened it. It was a key. What's this? It's the deed to the house, he said. The family home. I evicted them, remember? I had it cleaned, repainted, and exorcised of their bad energy. It's yours, Mia, if you want it. I thought about that house. The marble countertops paid for with my tuition. The pool where I wasn't allowed to swim if guests were over. I don't want to live there, I said honestly. Good, Grandpa smiled. Because I already sold it. The money is in your account. Use it to start your own life. Buy a place that feels like you. I smiled back, tears stinging my eyes. Thank you, Grandpa. Don't thank me, he said. You saved yourself. You stood up to them. You broke the cycle. I looked out the window. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the city. I was debt-free. I had a degree. I had a grandfather who loved me for who I was, not what I was worth. And somewhere, in a cold cell, my parents were finally paying the bill for the lifestyle they couldn't afford. I took a sip of my wine. It tasted like freedom. If you loved watching Mia take down her greedy parents, smash that like button. And here is a question for you. If you found out your parents adopted you just for the money, would you ever forgive them? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories of justice served.